I don't talk about gaming often on this channel, so I'm going to start by telling you about something I did that I should have done a long time ago, and this was in September of last year. I started playing a Yakuza game. It took me my sweet time to get around to it, and I'm afraid to say that the game I started with was Like a Dragon, so not quite the proper introduction to the series that I think I should have had. But in fairness, it was going free on PS Plus. Now, I absolutely love this game, since every time I boot this game up, there's something that'll raise my eyebrows, give me a sense of accomplishment, or make me laugh, often all three at the same time. And I started this game in September, and I'm still playing through it. Now, it is a fairly long game, but that's not the reason I haven't finished the story. You see, the reason I haven't gotten around to finishing Like a Dragon is because, at the same time as playing Yakuza Like a Dragon, I've also been a little distracted with playing Battlefield 2042. Battlefield 2042 was also a game that went free on PS Plus back in April 2023, and I'm glad I picked up that deal because the only price you should ever pay for Battlefield 2042 is free. We all know the story. Battlefield 2042 rode a wave of hype before it came crashing down all over it because of bugs, bad character design systems, and generally everything else for that matter. But even as I begrudgingly admit that the game can be kind of fun even after buggering up its own consistent content release schedule, surely there must be another game that seeks to do the same thing as Battlefield 42, but on a foundation that's on the whole a bit less shit. Well, as it happens, there is. Delta Force Hawk Ops is being named as the new Battlefield killer, and you've probably at least heard of it by now if you enjoy your FPS games. But for those of you who haven't caught up with it, allow me to explain. Hawk Ops is the long-awaited return of the Delta Force series of FPS games, but instead of being made by the original developers Nova Logic, this is being handled by Chinese developers Timmy Studio. These will feature 3 modes, one of which being a remaster of the classic Delta Force Hawk Ops Black Hawk Down. This will feature 3 modes, one of which being a remaster of the classic Delta Force Black Hawk Down campaign, an extraction shooter mode known as Hazard Operations, and a large-scale multiplayer mode featuring mixed infantry and vehicle combat known as Havoc Warfare. Now, unfortunately, I'm one of the tourists who has never played the original Delta Force series, so I'm going to be unable to speak for the campaign remaster. I also can't speak for the extraction shooter mode because, from what I've been told, the only good extraction shooter on the market is Tarkov, and I'm of the belief that no matter how bad things get, self-harm is never the option. But I'm both excited and slightly dreading what will happen when people get their hands on the game, because on one hand, oh yeah, this looks just like Battlefield, but on the other hand, oh no, this looks just like Battlefield. Reason for concern 1. 2042. The spiel about 2042 wasn't for nothing. It's because I and many others have noticed the slight parallels between Delta Force Hawk Ops and Battlefield 2042's marketing. Both are large-scale multiplayer offerings in classic shooter franchises, both have an extraction shooter portion with Hazard in its name, both have a main component with Warfare in its name, and both are not entirely dissimilar when it comes to aesthetic and even thumbnail design. But here's a key difference between them. Delta Force Hawk Ops is coming out over 2 years after the other one crashed and burned explosively in front of our eyes. Not only was 2042 plagued by bugs at launch, but even from a design standpoint, the game was fucked. The focus on specialist abilities instead of classes really damaged the game flow, and wouldn't it sure be a kick in the teeth if Hawk Ops also had the specialist system? So this game does have a specialist system, and this is something that, to give the devs credit, they did open up about when they received some backlash. Yes, they did say that it would be divided into classes with distinct roles, though how distinctive is yet to be seen. Bear in mind, DICE said something not entirely dissimilar when they received pushback upon revealing specialists. Let's just hope that Timmy have gone with the system of current BF 2042 instead of the system of launch BF 42. Another thing people often forget about BF 2042's launch was that the maps were way too big, with no cover, and there were barely any of them to begin with. Unless, of course, he played on previous gen consoles, in which cases the maps were actually decently sized, with no cover, and there were barely any of them to begin with. So I fear Hawk Ops could suffer a similar problem, since I've seen some of the leaked footage, and the maps in that footage line up to the trailers they've released for Havoc Warfare. Only 2 of them so far, and certainly this more mountainous one seems to be quite large, with a beach landing, then about 2 kilometers of walking, then suddenly a steep mountain with a base on top. In a breakthrough mode, this could actually go hard, but in an objective holding mode, like Conquest, this could struggle to get the full play space fully used. Hopefully there's more maps than just these 2, and the other one I saw in the leaked footage actually had some decent flow to it, so I won't complain there. Plus, the destruction already seems to be much more comprehensive than what was on display in 2042. Reason for concern 2. General mistranslation. TV's main focus up until now have been mobile games, so how they'll adapt to a release that spans both console and PC as well is yet to be seen. Now, the idea of these unlockable rewards at the bottom of the website show that maybe the monetization of the game is going to feel a bit more mobile than it does console, at least back in the day before bundles were a thing. A lot of people were also slightly suspicious of the devs upon watching the first dev diary, as Timmy decided to do it in English, which is clearly a second language for them. Thankfully, subsequently dev diaries have been done in their native language, and they sounded much more comfortable and able to explain a lot more about the game as well. The devs being based in a different country to the original Delta Force creators isn't something I'm worried about, by the way. As, for example, Mercury Steam are a Spanish studio, and yet they took over a Japanese series of platformers, Metroidvanias technically, and Metroid Dread is such fucking Kino. So, nothing to worry about in terms of the internationalization front. Though, I have some slight concerns about some level of mistranslation seeping into the game, and this is embodied by the Rise trailer. And I want you to go and give the Rise trailer a watch. Now, don't get me wrong, the person who's saying the lines, while English is also his second language, he's saying them very clearly. He enunciates very well. It's not the problem of how he's saying them, it's more, I want you to watch through the whole thing and just ask yourself one important question. What the fuck is he on about? That aside, there's also another couple of things that catch my interest, such as the dev team saying they did a research trip to North Africa to get the real Black Hawk Down aesthetic. And while I'm not doubting their technical capabilities, Black Hawk Down is set in Somalia. Somalia is in East Africa, mate. But maybe this isn't for the campaign remaster, but instead for the hazard operations maps, as this is supposed to be part of Task Force Delta's Operation Monument. A bit of proofreading goes a long way, guys. Reason for concern number 3, player count. Now, if this game is great, that's amazing. Great for everyone, but they've got to make it last. You see, this ain't the first time that a Battlefield killer has come onto the market. Just last year, we had BattleBit Remastered, which was amazing for what was just a 3-person dev team, generated one of Steam's largest player counts, and now only peaks at about 3,000 a week. Want more examples? Well, I'll give you some. Modern Warfare 2's Ground War mode was a massive improvement over Modern Warfare 2019's Ground War mode, and it genuinely showed up Battlefield in some places, but then Activision pulled devs from it so they could put out more work into Warzone content and eventually Modern Warfare 3, and polluting some of the aspects of Modern Warfare 2 that they hadn't already ruined, such as this fucking cutscene.
Heard you died in a tank in South America.
Well, I wasn't in that tank.
Now, of course, this cutscene is terrible. Not just because of that plot twist, but it's because they say Mexico is in South America. Mexico is in fucking North America. Has no one in the gaming industry done geography? But let's go even earlier with examples, because when Battlefield 5 came out with little content and a very inaccurate trail of World War II, if only you knew how bad things are right now. Yet World War III was in early access and showed some genuine promise, only for it to die, get resurrected, and then die again. Hawk Ops does have an ace up its sleeve since it's being released also with a Chinese audience in mind as well, which will massively boost the player count for about 1 hour a day. But despite all my concerns, the thing that worries me the most is that I still have hope for this game. The devs look like they're very committed to what they're doing, and they're actually doing a good job of communicating with people. Plus, they're doing public tests across the globe, showing that they're actively planning on taking on feedback, and they're even showing that they're making adjustments. I just hope that this can do justice to the fans of the original Delta Force games, since it's been a while since these fans have been on the radar. And I genuinely hope that it's the shot in the arm that this franchise needs instead of a nail in the coffin. As much as we don't know, given how the devs are consistently putting out trailers, I think that by the time this video comes out, we'll already have more info, or even a chance to try it ourselves. That isn't necessarily a compliment to the devs, it's more me reaffirming that I'm a lazy bastard when it comes to editing these videos.